Hello, National Poetry Day, theme of Refuge. My name is Matt Goodfellow, I'm a poet, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the theme of Refuge and why I think poetry is important for you guys and why I think it's so different to any other kind of writing. So we'll have a little bit of a chat about that, and then I'm going to run you through a little writing exercise where you'll need to pause the video for 15 minutes. And in that 15 minutes, you're going to jot some ideas down that will hopefully help you to write a poem another day. So Refuge as a theme, it's an interesting one. I was very interested to hear about that because for me, poetry has always been a kind of refuge, a sanctuary, a place for me to talk about my thoughts and feelings and ideas and to write them down. And the cool thing about poetry is it's totally different to any other kind of writing. Poetry is what I call rebel writing. So much of what you write in schools is bound by age-related expectations that the government sets to decide whether a piece of writing is a good year 6 piece of writing or a good year 5 piece of writing. Now, I was a primary school teacher for 10 years and I was forever having to talk to the children in my classes about these age-related expectations. We would stick a toolkit, a sticker in the books of the children in my classes, and the kids would have to, I would tell the children on this sticker what I wanted them to put in their writing. Now, of course, it wasn't really what I wanted them to put in their writing, it was what the government want you to put in your writing. And I don't think that necessarily stands up to what a good piece of writing is. But whilst the education system is as it is, the teachers in your schools, they kind of got their hands tied and they might have to get you to write things that like they don't particularly agree with. Teachers are brilliant people. I think that poetry is the only space within the current education system where you can talk with your pen. So you can talk in your voice and you can talk about your life. Your experiences matter, and poetry gives you a space to mess around with ideas without the grammar side of things. You know, it's not about fronted adverbials and expanded noun phrases. I got into writing poetry because I was supposed to be a rock star. That was the dream. I was supposed to be a multi-millionaire rock star. And I started playing the guitar when I was about 13 and started writing songs. And then I eventually realised I had no musical talent whatsoever. When I was about 23, put the guitar down, needed to get a job, proper job. As my dad told me, you need a proper job. So I became a primary school teacher. And the songs that I used to write became poems with the children that I used to teach. And then I left teaching behind to poet. Okay, let me show you a few poems that I've written, and yeah, we'll talk about them. So I write poems about 3 things: my life, lives that I've seen, and stuff that I make up. Now, I had a bit of, when I was a kid, life was a little bit difficult for me for a number of reasons. I lived between 2 houses. My mum and dad split up when I was a baby. Nothing wrong with that at all. 2 houses, living between 2 houses can work beautifully. The problem that I had is that my mum and dad really didn't like each other, and they made it clear to me and my sister when we were growing up that they didn't want anything to do with each other. And when I was going to primary school, so this happened when I was a baby, when I was going to primary school, I was the only person in my class living between 2 houses. And because I was naturally pretty clever and I was good at sports and I could be funny every now and then, people just assumed that I was okay. Nobody told me there was a refuge, there was a sanctuary. Nobody told me there was a place called poetry where I could find a shape for the thoughts and feelings and ideas. I'm going to read you a poem from this book. This is a book called Bright Bursts of Colour. This is a poem called Split. It goes like this. I stay at mum's for half the week, the other half at dad's. Both of them remarried to people not that bad. I've got a baby sister. She looks like me, they say. When I'm at my dad's, I miss her. She changes every day. Mum picks me up from dad's house but never rings the bell. It makes her sad to see him. She won't say, but I can tell. Rules are really different. To be honest, it's a pain. I can tell you've been at his house, and Dad says just the same. I've got some mates to chill with, but I'm only here part-time, so they've got mates they're tighter with, and I don't mind, it's fine. The steps, they don't do that much with me, but they say they want me there. Still, I always get the feeling they're glad I'm out their hair. I don't detest this life of mine, but I wish I could have had a chance to see what things were like, just me and Mum and Dad. They did the best they could, I suppose, the rest is out their hands. I've tried to talk about it, but no one understands. They see a clever, cocky kid, expensive bike and phone, two happy loving houses, when all I want's a home. So if I knew when I was at primary school and moving on to high school that I could find a place to talk about my life, I think it would have helped me. I discovered it through songwriting, through writing pretty bad songs, to be honest. Poetry, I think, gives you a chance to talk in your accent. I was born in a place called Withington in Manchester. I've grown up around Greater Manchester all my life. My accent is important to me. One of the things that poetry gives you the ability to do is to push language around like it's Play-Doh. And if you're interested in poetry, the most important thing you can do is get videos of poets on screen, listening to the accents. Poets come from all around the world, beautiful different accents. Now, the thing with accents is I believe that the way that you talk is part of your cultural heritage. The way that you talk is shaped by where you've grown up and who you've grown up with. If you read poems by Benjamin Zephaniah, for example, you will see that one of the things that poets can do is to push that language around and change the spelling of words so that when somebody's reading your poem, they're kind of forced to sound like you a bit. And I think if you do that, what you're saying to people is, this is who I am and this is where I'm from. Now, the difference with this and any other kind of writing in the education system is when I was a teacher, and your teachers still, are expected to demonstrate something called standard spoken English to you. Now, standard spoken English was an idea that comes from 150, 200 years ago when some very privileged, powerful people decided that the way that they spoke English was the only way to talk English. And if anybody spoke English differently to them, they were somehow inferior. And weirdly enough, it's 2023 and teachers are still having to demonstrate standard spoken English. So when I was a teacher, the kids in Manchester would say, "Mr. Goodfellow, can I go toilet?" And I had to say, "I think you mean, can I go to the toilet?" Or I'd say, "What did you do over the weekend?" And the kids would say, "I went town with me dad." And I would be forced to say, "I think you mean I went to town with my dad." And a lad in my first ever class when I was a teacher in 2006 maybe said, "ER, Mr. Goodfellow, how come you tell me it's wrong to say, can I go toilet, when my dad says it and my granddad says it?" And I got what this lad meant. He meant that the way that he spoke was important to him and it was part of his cultural heritage. When you're writing poems, should you choose to, of course, you can write in your accent. You can talk with your pen. Not only that, you can write poems with the words that you've got in your head already. The way that you talk to your mates, the way that you talk to the adults in your life. It matters. Poetry gives you a chance to do that. Find a refuge in who you are. Allow yourself to be proud of your voice. It's important. Whatever your accent is, wherever you were born, be proud of that accent. Okay, so I'm going to read you a little bit of this book. This is a new book of mine. It's called The Final Year. And this is a verse novel. Okay, so it's a bit thicker than normal poetry collections. Okay, it tells a story. And it tells a story through poems. And this tells a story of a boy called Nathan Wilder. And he's moving from year 5 to year 6. Now, I was a year 6 teacher for a long time, and I understand the pressures of year 6. Nate is a lad that's got a lot going on in his life. I wrote this book in Nate's voice. So when you're reading this book, or if you read it, when Nate is talking about his life, he talks in a Manchester accent. He says words like mint. He says things are dead good or proper good. Now, this is not standard spoken English. This is Nate's voice, and that voice has a power. Nate, he finds life gets really difficult for him for lots of different reasons. I'm going to read you a little bit of this just so you can see where this story begins, and hopefully you can hear a little bit in Nate's voice. So it's written like this. Okay, so each of the poems tell the story. It's beautifully illustrated by Joe Todd Stanton, who's a really talented guy. Part 1. Before we begin, you need to be able to pin this down so you can see it in your mind as it plays out. Picture where it's happening. Imagine it's summer, a hot one. Leave the suburban semis to their leaf dreams and head for the city, straight into the streets that surround the centre. See how things are different? It's tighter here. Can you feel it? See the takeaways and neon-washed litter, the disfigured pigeons huddled under railway bridges and flyovers, taxis, buses, pizza boxes, vape shops. This is not a place of Labradors and lattes and electric Audis. This is a place of staffies and cider and exhaust pipe smoke. A place of one foot in front of the other brother, because what else are you going to do? See that tall, skinny kid with the ball in his hand saying see you later to his mate? That's me, Nathan Wilder, Nate. 10 years old and a week away from the end of year 5. One more thing. The woman over there pushing the buggy, hair scraped up in a top knot, heading to the shop for milk and cider. A little kid dressed as Spider-Man trailing behind her. That's Mum. The kid is Dylan, my nearly 4-year-old nuisance of a littlest brother, always up to no good, man, straight out any open door. The bigger kid further back, kicking stones along the road, ignoring Mum's shouts to get a move on. That's Jackson, or Jax as everyone calls him. My other brother, 8 years old. He's all right. Nearly forgot. The school you can see right next to the park in the middle of the estate. The one with the fancy new cladding the council are putting on top of all the crumbling bricks and calling it regeneration. The one with the main road right next to it, rattling the cladding back off, and the corner shop opposite the main gates where Mum's heading to. That's Poppyfield Primary. My school. These are my streets. These are my people. This is my story. And what happens is Nate gets a teacher, quite an inspirational year 6 teacher. And Nate learns that poetry can help him talk about his life and explain what's happening. And he struggles with anger. He has something called the beast that he struggles with. And he begins to find a refuge and a sanctuary and a safety in explaining the thoughts in his head. If you're interested, you can do the same. Now, starting poems, people get a bit nervous about poetry, basically because the education system being like it is, it pumps young people out of high school feeling that poetry is not something to do with them. Again, this is not the teacher's fault, it's the way the education system is. It becomes about the GCSEs. So generation of young people have left high school being frightened of poetry, feeling disenfranchised with it, feeling like it's nothing to do with their lives. And some of those young people go up to be booksellers and teachers, and when poetry begins to be this thing that everyone gets nervous about. The way to get over that is to go and watch poets perform, watch the videos, read books, find poets and poetry that speaks to you. If you find a poem with a pattern in it, these are the best poems to get hold of and kind of push your life onto it. So I'm going to run you through a little workshop here for what you can do. We're only going to gather ideas, okay? So I don't care about handwriting. I don't care about spelling at this stage. All we're doing is getting some ideas down on a sheet of paper, okay? Let me show you what I mean. So a pattern. So I'm going to read you a poem from a book called Let's Chase Stars Together. This is a poem that I wrote for my daughter Daisy. Daisy's 13. I've got an 18-year-old son as well called Will. And Daisy is in year 9 at high school. I wrote this when she was at primary school, maybe year 5, and she was telling me that she liked it when there's wet play. The teacher's nightmare, but she enjoyed wet play because she liked being inside. She liked watching the windows, the condensation steam up. Now, there's a pattern to this poem. See if you can spot the pattern. It's called I Hope It Rains Today. I hope it rains today. I hope big fat drops bleed chalk stain bows across the playground. I hope gutters gurgle and drains hiss. I hope puddles bubble and sing, and minutes before the break bell rings, I hope Miss is torn away from talking tense to place both hands on the windowsill, narrow her eyes and send Jacob out to tell the teachers that it's her duty today, and therefore it's her call to say it's absolutely, unquestionably wet play, and there's no way she's putting a hood up because if you've seen her new hair. I hope it's dark as burnt back alley thoughts out there. I hope condensation sticks heavy to the glass in here as concentration departs. I hope through the plastic smack of drawers and pencil case zips and clatter of felt tip lids and dice rolled and toilet trips and noughts and crosses and glue stick losses, I hope I escape unnoticed to the library, where I hope I can find space to read. What I mean by a pattern is I hope becomes the start of every line. So every line of that poem starts with I hope. If you find a poem with a pattern like that and you're interested in writing about yourself, grab hold of those and borrow those ideas. It's called imitation. It's what you start doing. When you're starting to have a go at anything, you kind of copy what's already there. So when I was a kid playing football in my back garden, I was trying to copy the skills of the footballers who were famous at that time. Again, I did that pretty unsuccessfully. When I started playing the guitar, I wanted to play the guitar like Noel Gallagher out of Oasis. Because when I was 13, the year after that, Oasis released their first album. Again, unsuccessful imitation, but it's a starting point. Right, so hopes. All I want you to do, I'm going to get you to press pause on this in a minute for 15 minutes because I want you need to have a chat about this. All I want you to do is think about your life. What are your hopes in life? What do you hope might happen? And all you're going to do is you're going to take that idea of I hope, you're going to talk about it, and you're going to finish that line off. I hope, and then you're going to do it again. And you're going to simply start listing hopes and dreams. Now, the cool thing about this is, if you don't want to use I hope, you don't need to. You can do whatever you want, right? So you can smash the pattern. You can take a pattern and smash it. That's called innovation. Taking an idea from something and messing around with it. I'm going to give you 15 minutes, okay? And in that 15 minutes, I want you to talk about what your hopes are. I want you to start writing some ideas down. This is not about right or wrong. This is about gathering ideas. Put some ideas down, have a chat about it, see where you get to. We'll give you 15 minutes to do that. So if you press pause now and come back to me in 15 minutes. Okay, 15 minutes is up, or if you're just watching it straight through, there's been a bit of a strange little pause. Yeah, not very technically proficient, that's my pause, just me doing that. What you should now have is some ideas. Ideas are what you need. And what's important you now do is you put those ideas away. Come back to them tomorrow or another day, and that's when you start deciding what you want your poem to be about. So when you're looking through your ideas, you might want to stick to that pattern of I hope. Each line, I hope, I hope, I hope. You might want to begin to smash that pattern. And if you're going to change it from I hope, what are you going to change it to? That's entirely up to you. It's a doorway of creativity here. Remember, this is not about grammar. This is not about capital letters and full stops. This is about your thoughts and feelings and ideas. If you want to smash that pattern, a good way to do it, have a little look at what you've got on your sheet of paper. Is there anything on that bit of paper that interests you more than anything else? If it does, take the idea and run with it. See where you get to. It's not about right or wrong. Poetry as a space for you to talk about your thoughts and feelings and ideas. Find a poem with a pattern, borrow that pattern, push your life onto it, mess around with the ideas and see where you get to. I'm not trying to turn you into a poet or make you into a poet. All I want you to know is that there is a space called poetry where, should you choose to, you can talk about your thoughts and feelings and ideas, and you can do it in your voice. It's important because you're important and your experiences matter. And I wish somebody had told me when I was your age that. I discovered it for myself, and now my job is to open that doorway and show you that should you choose to, you can do the same. Have a brilliant National Poetry Day. Get yourself into your local libraries, get yourself into your school libraries, get yourself into independent bookshops, seek poetry out, find it. Get hold of a copy of The Final Year. It's quite an interesting book. Enjoy National Poetry Day. It's been great talking to you. My name is Matt Goodfellow. Have a great time.